Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. We're looking at the sits for week number 6. And Dave, you're up first. Let's talk about the guys that you're trying to avoid in your lineups for this week. You got Russell Wilson at quarterback, Najee Harris and Ezekiel Elliott at running back, Deontay Johnson and Romeo Doubs at receiver, and a lot of headlining names here, specifically at the running back position with Najee and Zeke. So we'll start there. So is it just time to sit Najee Harris? Are we done with him as a must-start running back?
Have you been watching him for the last couple of weeks? He stinks. I don't even know if I need to qualify it any more than that. The Bucs rank 5th in fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs. Here's one qualifier. Harris is no better than 30th among qualifying running backs in yards per carry, rush EPA, explosive play rate, avoided tackle rate. Jalen Warren's been better. I kind of want to start Jalen Warren ahead of Najee Harris. I don't have the stones to do that, but I really don't want to trust any Steelers running back against the Bucs.
Why still a starter for you?
I don't want him to be a starter. I have a hard time finding 24. I had a hard time finding 20 running backs. David Montgomery's RB18 for me, and he's the last running back that I want to start. I still think he's probably going to get 15 plus touches, and he's going to catch a few passes. So that's why he's in this range. But there just aren't any good running backs this week.
Last week we saw Jalen Warren play 51% of the snaps. So it was,
a lot of that was the fourth quarter.
After that, but Mike Tomlin said we're going to see more opportunities for Jalen Warren. So it could be frustrating. Zeke's been very frustrating all season long. This is going to continue in Week 6 against the Eagles.
81 or fewer total yards in every game this season for Ezekiel Elliott. Single-digit PPR points in 4 of 5 games. He hasn't scored in 5 of his past 6 against Philadelphia. We're waiting for the Cowboys to put Tony Pollard in and let him go. Clearly the more explosive running back. They're hesitating. While they hesitate, I don't mind not using Ezekiel Elliott. I just don't want fantasy managers to use him either. The expectation is below 10 PPR points.
The Eagles' run defense has been fantastic all season long, so easy to get away from Zeke as well. Deontay Johnson, though, not as easy to get away from. Heath, I know you still have faith in him. Dave, not so much. So Dave, make the case against. I know, Heath, he's not a start for you, but you still like Deontay Johnson a little bit.
Yeah, I like George Pickens better. 13 targets last week. They were great. 6 of the targets from Kenny Pickett were uncatchable throws, and Deontay Johnson had 2 drops on top of that. Only 2 receivers this year against Tampa Bay have posted 15-plus PPR points, and they're particularly good against outside receivers. The difference to me between Deontay Johnson and George Pickens is that Pickens is making plays in single coverage, tight coverage. He's a playmaker. I think the Steelers are going to continue to feed him, and I think that Pickett has more chemistry with Pickens than he does with Deontay Johnson.
The Steelers offensive coordinator came out today and said that Deontay Johnson's still our number 1 wide receiver. The targets make that obvious. 50 in 5 games. He's still scored 11 fantasy points or more in 4 of 5 games, despite the fact that he hasn't scored a touchdown. He has the most targets in the NFL, 50, without a score this year. That screams regression. I'm just going to keep starting him as a number 3, not as a number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, hopefully he does find the end zone. Hopefully some of those passes are a little bit more on target. And again, Kenny Pickett's still getting his feet wet as an NFL starter, but it's just frustrating to see how Deontay Johnson has underperformed based on some of the expectations we had for him coming into this year. Heath, let's move on to your sits here. You got Matthew Stafford, James Robinson, A.J. Dillon, Jalen Waddle, and George Pickens. So you would prefer Deontay Johnson over Pickens. You would prefer Pickens over Deontay Johnson.
I would.
I would still take Deontay Johnson, but they're very, very close at this point. Why not Stafford in this game? This feels like another bounce-back spot for him, knowing that the Panthers, again, they're 11-point underdogs on the road, and their pass defense has not exactly been slam dunk to stop a team even as bad as Stafford has been.
He basically has 1 wide receiver on this team, at least 1 wide receiver he will look at. He's missing guys, he's taking sacks he shouldn't, and the offensive line is absolutely awful, so he's taking sacks that he doesn't have any control over either. I'm just afraid that as a game they're 11-point favorites, as bad as he's been throwing the ball, as many bad things has happened, he's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns this year, that it might be the Cam Akers game, that we might just be a lot more runs and we won't see the 40 pass attempts. The game, last time we saw them win against Arizona, another team that really couldn't get after him, he threw 25 pass attempts and did not throw a touchdown pass.
He should have had 2 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, he was
Cooper
really
Kupp
good in that
rarely misses passes. Should have had 2 touchdowns in that game, and he did have a rushing touchdown, first time in his career. Jimmy Garoppolo just won 22 fantasy points against this defense. I have a feeling this is not going to be a smash game for Stafford, but I think he can get to that 22, 23-point threshold. I actually don't mind him as a low-end starter, but again, not a lot of confidence because of what we've seen from Stafford. James Robinson, huge disappointment last week. Obviously, I thought he was going to be great. Was the start of the week. Now's the time to really bench him outright.
I'm scared that the Jacksonville Jaguars might bench him outright. He's been trending in that direction. 4 consecutive games he's played fewer snaps. Travis Etienne had the same number of carries each of the last 2 weeks, and Etienne has been better with those carries. Also, Etienne is the receiving back, and that's been the one way to have success against this Colts defense.
He had 4 touches in the final 3 quarters of last week's game. The Jaguars coaches took 1 look at James Robinson and went, nope, and they went with Etienne, who had, I want to say, was it 48 yards on his first 2 carries? So it makes sense. ETN's more explosive. They can use him in the passing game. James Robinson's a between the tackles guy who just doesn't have that quick burst like he did earlier in his career.
And the Colts, I know they gave up a big touchdown run to him, 37-yard touchdown run to him in week 2. He had 64 yards on his other 22 carries. I don't think they're going to be playing with a lead in this game. Could be frustrating for James Robinson. Jalen Waddle is very difficult to get away from because he's been so good, but he has not been performing very well with Skylar Thompson the last week plus. Going into this game now, or backup quarterback, last week, Puck, but Teddy Bridgewater 2 games ago, and Skylar Thompson last week. We're not going to see Tua. We're probably not going to see Teddy. Are we not going to see Jalen Waddle produce at a high level?
I don't think we are. I think we'll see Skylar Thompson really latch on to that number 1 option, that Tyreek Hill, and we'll see his targets stay defined. We'll see the Dolphins, if they can, attempt to run the ball more because they don't want to expose Skylar Thompson. So I think it's a lower pass volume and a lower share of the targets for Waddle. I'd like to stay away. I understand if you have to start him as a number 3.
Yeah, he's somebody I'll probably drop a few spots. You see, we're all kind of in a similar range. Low end number 2, more of a number 3 receiver in sports line. Out on Jalen Waddle. It's been a frustrating 2 weeks. For him, again, hopefully he gets better performance with Skylar Thompson now that Thompson has a full week of reps in practice, but very difficult to trust him. All right, the sits for me, I'm going to avoid Trevor Lawrence. That's an easy one, I think, based on what we've seen the last couple of weeks, so we won't need to discuss that. We talked a little bit about Juju already, so we'll talk about Clyde in a second. Jerry, Jeudy, and Kyle Pitts. Pitts, I'm just not ready to trust him, even though he is coming back, still dealing with that hamstring injury, not 100%, and clearly underperforming. But it's not easy to get away from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's been fantastic for fantasy managers, and I don't want to say it's just because of what happened last week, because last week he was miserable. But the problem is what happened last week gives you an example of what can happen if he does not find the end zone. And last week they were chasing points. And last week Jerick McKinnon continued to play more than him. I could see a situation again where Jerick McKinnon plays more than him against the Bills. They have given up 5 total touchdowns to running backs, 4 of them on the ground, 2 of them fluky to Chase Edmonds. I just don't think this is a big game for Clyde if he does not score. Are you guys counting on him to score, or you think he's going to be successful with his total yards, which has really not been there outside of the Tampa Bay game?
I think if you're starting him, you're hoping that he scores, but you're also hoping that he's a key component in a game that's got a total of 53.5 points. It's huge. Everybody expects it to be a high-scoring game. And if the Bills are going to play that cover 2 zone defense, they're basically daring the Chiefs to run. I think the Chiefs are prepared for it, and I think Edwards-Helaire is their best option.
They're going to lose by 3 touchdowns if they try to run against Buffalo.
I don't know about that.
You think they're going to win the game by running against Buffalo?
I don't think they're going to win the game by running. I think both teams are going to do the exact same thing to each other and dare them both to run. I like Kansas City's chances. I like Edwards-Helaire as a number 2 running back.
The 2 games before last week are the 2 toughest defenses the Chiefs have played. And we saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 0 rushing yards against the Colts and still scored 15 or 14.9 PPR.
He had 7 carries and scored a touchdown with 0 rushing.
Right, I know. I mean, and then the following week,
he's miserable.
The best defense he's faced, he had 19 carries for 92 yards.
That was fluky. Come on, they were playing with a 3 touchdown lead in that game.
Yeah, I don't think that
the way he's playing in this Chiefs offense, when they're probably going to score 30 points, I'm just going to leave him in my lineup in a week when we have so many running backs.
See, that I understand. Yeah. And again, it's not a complete you got to get away from. Right. But I think again, if he does not score, you're going to be very frustrated with Clyde. I'm starting, this craziest sound, I'm starting Cam Akers over Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. And in terms of Jerry Jeudy, look, just a miserable performance so far for the majority of the season. He does have 2 touchdowns. If he does not score as well, only 1 game with, he has not gone over 4 catches yet. He hasn't gone over 55 receiving yards yet. I'm not trusting Jerry Jeudy until I see a little bit better performance from Russell Wilson.